The Democratic Republic of Congo, a nation grappling with poverty and political instability, faces a growing internal threat: the Kuluna gangs. These organized groups of young people have become synonymous with violence and terror, preying on the innocent in broad daylight. Armed with machetes, knives, and sometimes firearms, they roam the streets, leaving a trail of fear and despair in their wake. Their crimes are as brazen as they are brutal armed robbery, extortion, rape, and murder. The Congolese people, already burdened by hardship, live in a perpetual state of fear, their daily lives held hostage by the unpredictable violence of the Kuluna. The epicenter of this crisis is Kinshasa, the sprawling capital city, where the gangs operate with impunity, their grip on power seemingly unbreakable. Faced with mounting pressure and public outcry, the Congolese government has resorted to drastic measures. In a controversial move, they have reinstated the death penalty, a punishment reserved for the most heinous crimes. This decision, met with mixed reactions, has ignited a fierce debate about justice, human rights, and the effectiveness of capital punishment in combating crime. The question on everyone's mind is, will this extreme measure be enough to curb the Kuluna's reign of terror and restore peace to the streets of Kinshasa? Or will it simply exacerbate the cycle of violence and push the country further down a dangerous path? In January 2025, the Congolese government dropped a bombshell. Justice Minister Constant Mutamba announced the transfer of over 170 inmates, all young men aged 18 to 35, to the notorious Njenga prison. Their crime? Membership in the dreaded Kuluna gangs and convictions for armed robbery. Their fate? Execution. This chilling decree marked the return of capital punishment to the Democratic Republic of Congo, a nation that had last carried out an execution in 2003. The government's justification for this drastic measure was clear: to eradicate the Kuluna menace and restore order to the streets. The gangs, they argued, had become a threat to national security, their reign of terror undermining the very fabric of Congolese society. The death penalty, they believed, was the only language these criminals understood, the only deterrent powerful enough to break their grip on power. The decision to reinstate capital punishment was not without precedent. In 2006, the DRC had reintroduced the death penalty for certain crimes, including military treason. However, no executions were carried out until March 2024, when several soldiers were put to death for treason. The latest move to expand the scope of capital punishment to include Kuluna members signaled a hardening stance against crime, a no-holds-barred approach to restoring order. The announcement sent shockwaves through the nation and beyond, sparking a heated debate about the ethics and effectiveness of capital punishment. Was this a necessary evil, a desperate measure for desperate times? Or was it a dangerous step backward, a violation of fundamental human rights that would do little to address the root causes of crime? The government's controversial decision to reinstate the death penalty for Kuluna members has divided public opinion in the Democratic Republic of Congo. While many welcome the move as a long-overdue response to rampant insecurity, others express deep reservations, fearing human rights abuses and a descent into state-sanctioned violence. For those who have lived under the shadow of the Kuluna, the death penalty represents a glimmer of hope. They argue that these gangs have terrorized communities for too long, their brutality demanding an equally forceful response. The death penalty, they believe, will serve as a powerful deterrent, sending a clear message that such violence will no longer be tolerated. However, the move has also drawn sharp criticism, particularly from human rights organizations and legal experts. They argue that the death penalty is a violation of the right to life, a fundamental human right enshrined in international law. They also point to the fallibility of the justice system, raising concerns about the risk of wrongful convictions and the irreversible nature of capital punishment. Moreover, critics question the effectiveness of the death penalty as a deterrent to crime. They argue that it does not address the root causes of crime, such as poverty, inequality, and lack of opportunity, which fuel the cycle of violence. They advocate for a more holistic approach, one that focuses on rehabilitation, social reintegration, and addressing the socioeconomic factors that contribute to crime. The reintroduction of the death penalty in the Democratic Republic of Congo has cast a long shadow over the country's human rights record. International organizations, including the United Nations and Amnesty International, have condemned the move, urging the Congolese government to reconsider its stance and embrace a more humane approach to justice. One of the primary concerns is the risk of extrajudicial killings. Critics fear that the government's hardline stance against the Kuluna could lead to a surge in unlawful killings by security forces operating with impunity. The lack of transparency and accountability within the justice system further exacerbates these fears, raising the specter of a descent into state-sanctioned violence. Another major concern is the fairness of trials. The Congolese justice system is notoriously weak, plagued by corruption, inefficiency, and lack of due process. Critics argue that Kuluna suspects, often from marginalized communities, are unlikely to receive fair trials, further increasing the risk of wrongful convictions and executions. The reintroduction of the death penalty represents a significant step backward for human rights in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It undermines the country's international commitments and sets a dangerous precedent for other nations grappling with crime and insecurity. The international community must continue to pressure the Congolese government to uphold its human rights obligations and seek alternative solutions that prioritize rehabilitation and address the root causes of crime.